The CBO projects the Senate bill would cut future flow of illegal immigrants by up to half, while at the same time reducing the deficit by $135 billion over 10 years. And the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, which helped to craft the Senate bill, is running ads calling for an end to the status quo. All of this begs the question, what exactly is stopping the House GOP from embracing comprehensive reform? Joining me today, Executive Vice President of Global Strategy Group and former Senior Advisor to Priorities USA Action, Bill Burton, New York Magazine's Jonathan Chait, and Distinguished Senior Fellow at Demos, Bob Herbert. And joining us from Capitol Hill is Republican Congressman from Idaho, Raul Labrador, who serves on the House Judiciary Committee, as well as the Subcommittee on Immigration and Border Security. Congressman, thanks so much for joining us on a very, very important day.
It's great to be on your show, Alex.
Congressman, I want to start first with what you have said to the press thus far as comprehensive immigration reform. You told The Hill today that it is comprehensive reform. The Senate bill is less likely today than it was a month ago. I ask you in this hour, is there any chance that the Senate bill can pass the House of Representatives?
There's absolutely no chance that the Senate bill passes the House of Representatives. It's a good start. There's a lot of good things in the Senate bill, but we need to make it stronger. And we actually believe that we should do a step-by-step approach. I think a comprehensive bill is a bad idea. I think you can do a comprehensive approach to immigration where you do a series of bills that together they deal with the issue comprehensively. And I think that's what we're trying to do in the House of Representatives.
Are you confident that that step-by-step approach will include a path to citizenship?
It will include a path to legal status. I don't know that it will include a path to citizenship. It will be some sort of legal status, which I think should not prevent anybody from becoming citizens, but will not necessarily give them a citizenship status. And I think that's something that the American people want. I think that's something that is fair, but is something that can also pass the House of Representatives.
Congressman, if, as you say, the Senate bill dies and there's no chance that it passes the House, what do you say to editorials like this one from the Wall Street Journal, which is not exactly known as a bastion of liberal thought? I'll read you the quote from the op-ed page today. The Republican-led House has tried to sell itself as a party of solutions, to fail to fix any part of an immigration system that everyone agrees is contrary to U.S. economic interests, and after the Senate has passed a bipartisan reform, would play into Democratic charges that House Republicans are mere obstructionists. Are House Republicans mere obstructionists?
Absolutely not. You know, you had a small minority of the Republican Party in the Senate vote for the bill. You had obviously most of the Senate Democrats, or all of the Senate Democrats, vote for it. I think there is a solution. The question is, Chuck Schumer said yesterday, for example, that any bill without a pathway to citizenship is dead in the Senate. So if Chuck Schumer is not going to accept anything unless he gets 100% of what he wants, then he's the one who's killing immigration reform. He's the one who's saying that 80% is not enough.
Do you really think the narrative is out there that it's Democrats that are killing this? I mean, you have the Wall Street Journal excoriating House Republicans on this. You have a bill that was put together. Let me finish. You have a bill that was put together by John McCain and Lindsey Graham and the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, and you're going to blame Democrats?
Yeah, if Chuck Schumer does not accept the solution from the House, if he says that 80% is not good enough for him because he wants 100%, then it is his fault. I mean, think about this, where we have come from. The Republican Party is actually working on immigration reform, is working on legalization legislation, is working on ways to deal with the young kids that are here in the United States that came here through no fault of their own. If that is not good enough for Chuck Schumer and the Democratic Party, then that means that they really don't want a solution, that all they want is the rhetoric to talk about immigration reform. You also need to remember the president had solid majorities in the House and the Senate when he was elected. He promised the Hispanic people that that was the first issue he was going to work on, was immigration reform, and he did not do it. And now conveniently, after his re-election, he's saying that it's the House that is not doing immigration reform. He had 2 years to do it, and he did absolutely nothing. So let's not try to blame the Republicans for the lack of immigration reform. I would say it's not Democrats necessarily who are just blaming the Republicans. It's other Republicans who are blaming the Republicans. I mean, well, I don't. You're talking about the Wall Street Journal. That's a journal. That's an editorial journal. That's neither a Republican or a Democrat. We're also talking about George Bush, former president, John McCain, Lindsey Graham, who I don't think will be happy if the bill dies in the House. I just listened to George Bush. I agreed 100% with everything that he said in that clip that you just had. So I don't see how George Bush and I disagree on anything. I actually think George Bush and I agree 100% on what needs to be done. We need to have responsible immigration reform. And reducing illegal immigration by 30 to 50% is not responsible immigration reform.
Let me just ask you one question, though. You're accusing Democrats of being absolutist over things. Isn't that Republicans doing exactly the same thing, saying you want 100% security on a border that is tens of thousands of miles long?
No,
and when you have a proposal that reduces it by up to half?
Yeah, nobody's saying 100%, but it has to be better than 30%. I mean, think about the CBO is saying it's going to be between 30 and 50%. We all know that it's going to be less than what the CBO scores, because when the CBO scores everything else, they always seem to overestimate things. But even if we take them at their word, which is what I'm doing right now, 30 to 50%, the American people will not stand for that. You look at all the polling data out there, whether it's Republican polling data or Democratic polling data, it all shows that the American people want us to do something on immigration, and I agree with them. But they also say that the #1 concern that they have is they want border security. They want to make sure that we secure the border and that we do not have this same issue 10 years from now. If you think about it, if we allow that kind of illegal immigration over the next 10 years, every 5 years we're going to have another Reagan amnesty. We're going to have to start legalizing people every 5 years. I don't want to be here 10 years from now debating this issue again.
Let me bring in our panel here in New York for a little analysis as well. Bill, I want to ask, I mean, I think part of this is, of course, about immigration reform and the specific policy choices in and around reform, but I also think what is happening here is exemplary of the larger clique within the Republican Party, where you have some folks who are moderate, who are willing to come to the table to compromise, and you have other folks, be they from conservative districts in certain areas of the country, or just sort of ideologues and party purists who refuse to come to the table with anything that smells even vaguely of compromise.
Right. Well, let me make 2 points, one on policy, one on politics. On the policy, Democrats had a choice of whether or not they could really try to get a bill or just have a bill that failed and use the politics of it to win in elections. I think that Democrats demonstrated that they were willing to give up a lot. You know, giving up on the gay rights piece of this was giving up a lot. Giving up on this crazy border security piece of this is a lot. We're now more militarized at the border than when Woodrow Wilson was chasing down Pancho Villa. On the politics piece of this, Republicans have a big problem. If you're a guy like Mike Kaufman in Colorado and you need to fix your problem with Hispanic voters, and you've called Tom Tancredo your hero, then you need a bill to vote on. Now, Republicans could put together a coalition of Republicans and Democrats in the House and actually pass something through. The fact that they won't is the problem that Congressman Labrador can't exactly solve for in the talking points that don't exactly match up with reality.
You know, I don't speak on talking points, so that's totally offensive. If you want to have a debate and a discussion, we can do that. I actually have my own mind. I was an immigration lawyer for 15 years. I think I know more than you do about immigration and immigration reform. So let's not try to insult people when we're trying to have an honest discussion about what's happening in America.
There was no insult intended, Congressman,
yeah.
But I'll let you respond to that.
I think there was.
Well, I appreciate, Congressman, that you were an immigration lawyer for 15 years. Then you, of all people, should know that there is a massive problem in this country and that your party is standing in the way of solving it.
And it's not my party. It's your party, actually, that stood in the way of solving it when President Bush tried to resolve it. So if we want to cast aspersions back and forth, we could do that all day.
President Bush gave up on immigration reform after 2006.
After President Obama, when he was a senator, voted for amendments that killed the immigration reform effort in the Senate. So let's talk about the reality of immigration reform. Your party hasn't wanted to do it. Rahm Emanuel told the president that if they did immigration reform, Democrats would lose electorally. So if you want to start casting aspersions, your party has as much blame as my party has for not getting this issue solved.
Let me just ask Jonathan Chait to respond to this idea that the congressman is putting forward, that it's Democrats who are standing in the way of compromise here.
I didn't say that.
Certainly,
I said both parties are. Both parties are.
The Democrats are equally to blame.
Well, his premise is that the Democrats are insisting on getting everything they want, which he means to be the Senate bill. But the Senate bill isn't everything Democrats want. The Senate bill is a compromise between the two parties. So they went pretty far toward what the Republicans want in the Senate bill. And now he's saying you have to go much, much farther and abandon the central things that you wanted in immigration reform. In fact, to go further right than even a lot of Republicans in the Senate want. So that's kind of a strange argument, but it's interesting that he feels compelled to try to blame the Democrats for the failure of immigration reform that the House Republicans are engineering. I wasn't sure that the House Republicans would want to do that.
I feel compelled to defend Republicans after you guys are